Hello, magnetic feminine ladies. How are you? Today is the first edition of Inner Work Wednesday. So welcome to Inner Work Wednesday, first edition. So what I would really love for you to do before you dig into this, if it's possible, if you're in a place where you're at home or you're in a place where it's possible to do this, I would love for you to pause the video right now and do something to create a vibe for yourself. Light a candle, put some flowers. Like you see, I've got my flowers right here on my desk. I have a fresh cup of tea. I have this lovely candle that's burning. And I'm sitting in this beautiful space that I've created. I would love for you to treat yourself to a vibe before digging into this. And, for that matter, I would love for you to do that for every Inner Work Wednesday, every piece of content that you consume from me. I would love for you to make this an experience for yourself rather than just zipping through it on double speed while you're in your car or something like that. Because we know that you're not going to fully integrate things that way. So if it's not possible for you to listen to this and really be present to it, I would actually encourage you to do one of two things. Listen to it now and take in what you can while you're doing something else, but then schedule time later to listen to it again and be present to it. Or just simply don't do it right now and come back to it when you can be present. Schedule time to be present to this, because otherwise what's going to happen. You'll say, okay, Chelsea told me to listen to it later when I can be present to it, and then you don't come back to it, right? So if you would prefer to wait until you can really be present to it to listen to it, that is amazing. And I would encourage you to take out your calendar right now and schedule, an hour or 90 minutes, however long this is going to take. We'll see. I've got a bunch of pages of notes, so it'll be very juicy. Schedule time to really be able to take it in, because otherwise what's going to happen is if you take it in on double speed while you're driving or cleaning your house, you'll get to the end of it and you'll say, okay, checked off the list. I listened to that thing I was going to listen to. Check. But you didn't really take it in and integrate it. So what good did it do, really? So some thoughts to start with right off. Now this Inner Work Wednesday is about getting your needs met in a relationship. So there's going to be two parts to this. So the first part is in the Magnetic Femininity group. It's actually, let me say it this way. The whole workshop is going to be available in the Magnetic Feminine Woman Academy, which is my membership. And if you're not already in that membership and you'd like to know more information, go ahead and send me a private message and I'm happy to share some information about it with you. And I'm going to be putting the first part of this also in the Magnetic Femininity group so that everyone can watch it, even if you're not in my membership. So in the part one, I'm going to be covering why we tend to put all of our needs on men in a relationship instead of being proactive with ourselves. I'm going to be talking about what happens with men and what happens with the relationship when we do that, and how we end up showing up with them, and how it creates problems in the relationship. And I'm going to be also sharing with you the needs that can only be fulfilled by a partner, so that the difference between needs that you are responsible for meeting yourself and needs that must be met in a partnership in order to feel a sense of reciprocity in a relationship. And what I'm going to be covering inside the MFWA, the part two, is how to distinguish if you're feeling needy because you're not meeting your own needs, or if it's your partner who's showing up. Because being able to understand the difference, 1116, that's a special number for me. being able to distinguish if it's your own needs that you're responsible for meeting, or if it's genuinely a need that your partner is not showing up for you, it's really important to be able to distinguish between the two. I'm going to also cover how to make sure that you're choosing a man who can appropriately meet your needs, especially if you're in the dating stage. I'm going to be sharing how to identify what needs you can reasonably expect a partner to meet and to fulfill, and what needs you must fulfill yourself in order to be happy, and how to do that. And I'm going to be giving you the inner work for addressing unmet needs within yourself, and tips for communicating an unmet need that is actually for your partner to be able to fulfill. So if you want to get access to the MFWA so that you can access the rest of this training as well as every other Inner Work Wednesday that I'm going to be doing, then again, send me a private message. I'm happy to hook you up with some information. So let's start with the problem, or the way this manifests. When we feel like our needs aren't being met, if we end up feeling abandoned, we feel chaos, we feel fear, and those types of emotions, they bring up our shadows. Our shadows end up stepping in, doing anything we possibly have to, even if it's not in a healthy way, to get our needs met. And the thing is about our shadow is it can create a lot of chaos in our life. And your shadow doesn't care if it's hurting someone else. Your shadow doesn't care if it's trampling other people's boundaries. Your shadow doesn't care if you're getting your needs met in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. All it cares about is getting your needs met. So what is a shadow really? The shadow is the part of yourself, the ego, that steps in to meet an unmet need within yourself. So the way that I teach, in my programs and in the MFWA, that, we all have needs within ourselves to feel loved, to feel good enough, to feel safe. Like, we all have these core needs within ourselves. And there are these needs, we can proactively meet them in very healthy and fulfilling ways. But the thing is most of us didn't learn how to do that. Most of us didn't learn how to draw on our inner masculine energy, take care of our feminine energy and nurture it and protect it. We didn't learn how to balance our inner masculine and feminine. We didn't learn that other people aren't responsible for meeting our own needs, because most of us grew up with parents who expected everyone else to meet their needs instead of taking a look at themselves. And they martyred themselves and played victim and created a lot of expectations and demands and things like that. So that was what was modeled for a lot of us. And so therefore that's what we learned. And so because we were not taught how to meet our own needs within ourselves, what ends up happening is your shadow, the ego, steps in to get those needs met by any means necessary. There are very productive and fulfilling ways of making yourself feel safe, feel heard, feel seen. But then when the shadow expresses itself through the ego, it's like, if I don't feel seen and heard, so I need to create demands. I need to demand that people see me and hear me. I need to over-explain to make sure they see me and hear me. I need to set expectations that people must meet. Otherwise, I'm not okay. And if they don't meet those expectations, then I need to punish them until they do meet those expectations, right? So what happens when we're expecting a man to meet all of our needs, or expecting other people in general, but let's keep it focused on romantic relationships. When we expect a partner to meet all of our needs, it doesn't work, because men will trip over themselves to add joy to women who create their own joy. They will trip over themselves to add fulfillment to women who are fulfilled. But they're repulsed by the idea of being the sole source of your joy and fulfillment. That repulses emotionally healthy masculine men, because they know, they can feel on a subconscious and energetic level that if they pursue a woman who is dependent on him for all of her needs to be met, then they'll have no room to be themselves. They'll have no room to evolve into more of who they are. They'll have no room to set boundaries, to take care of themselves, to prioritize other things that matter to them. They can feel on an energetic level that this woman is unsafe. She is putting all of her needs on me, and therefore I will have no wiggle room to take care of myself, because she will expect me to be there at her beck and call at all times. She will expect me to always act according to what she deems correct. Otherwise, she's not okay. So what fears are triggered when your needs aren't met? Like I said, we all have core needs and fears, and most of our needs and fears can really be boiled down to three main ones. So the fear of I'm not enough, which is, if we think about the behavior that goes along with that, think about how you behave. Take a minute and really sit with this. What behaviors are triggered when you have the feelings of I'm not enough? How does that manifest itself? And, even though this is a recording, I would love for you, like if you're in the Magnetic Femininity group watching this, I would love for you to leave a comment and let me know how this fear of I'm not enough manifests itself. How does your ego step in to try to fill that need when you feel not enough? How do you show up with men and partners? How do you show up with your kids? How do you show up with anybody, but particularly with men? How do you show up when you feel like you're not good enough? I'm going to give you a moment to sit with that. And you could pause the video as well. The second core fear / need that we have is I don't feel safe. So when we don't feel safe, what behaviors are triggered when you don't feel safe with your man? I'll give you a moment to think about that as well. I'm going to give you some examples in a moment, but I would really love for you to pause the video and search for yourself, search within yourself. This is part of the integration that I was talking about when you create an experience around listening to these Inner Work Wednesdays. Pause the video when I ask you to, and really listen to your heart. Drop from your head down into your body. Bring your awareness out of your brain and take some deep breaths and listen to your body. With your awareness in your body, I'll ask the question again. How do you show up when you feel like you're not enough? How do you show up when you feel like you're not safe? And the third one, again, with your attention and your awareness focused in your body, how do you show up when you think there's not enough for me? So in other words, lack, scarcity. When you feel like there's not enough quality men in the world, there's not enough potential partners for you, there's not enough men who would love you, there's not enough. So some examples of behaviors that we often see when we feel like we're not enough, it's I need to try harder, I need to do more. When we feel unsafe, this often manifests itself in trying to control people, telling them what to do, setting expectations and demands, and then being disappointed and upset when they're not met, and or becoming guarded, feeling unsafe within yourself, so therefore you go back into your shell. You don't show your heart anymore. And when we feel like there's not enough for me, there's not enough quality men, there's not enough potential matches out there for me, behavior, we settle for less than total fulfillment because we think, I probably can't get any better, so I have to make do with this. There's not enough quality men out there. All the good ones are taken. So I have to settle for what I've got. I have to make this one work. I'm going to take a moment and just like tune into your body. How do you feel? What emotions are being brought up right now? Is there shame, embarrassment, sadness, guilt, anger, defensive?ness? Really listen to your body and just notice what comes up. We don't need to fix it, but this is just a practice of honoring yourself and connecting with your emotions and being a safe space for your emotions. So why does this happen? This happens, when these three core needs are not met within ourselves first. And I'm going to talk about in the confines of a relationship later, but within ourselves, we must be willing to meet these needs, because when we look outside of ourselves for these core needs to be met without being willing to meet them within ourselves, we are always on shaky ground. We are never rooted and grounded and on solid ground, because it's always contingent on someone else. We feel safe when a man acts like this, when he acts perfectly, and when he constantly tells me he loves me, and when he constantly checks in with me, we feel safe. But then the minute he's got something going on for himself and he needs to focus on his work for a few days or anything else, boom, we feel unsafe because we're not taking care of our own safety, right? So, why do we end up putting all of our needs on men? First of all, because nobody taught us any other way. Most of us grew up with parents who projected all of their crap onto each other. We grew up with parents who set expectations and demands on each other and didn't fully see who the other was. And, a lot of us grew up in homes where there was, people walking on eggshells around each other, trying not to trigger them, trying not to upset them, trying and failing. And nobody ever taught you that the feeling that you get with a man, of that feeling of safety and security and fulfillment, it came from you. All of your feelings come from within you. Now, other people can trigger certain feelings, but they're always available within us. And nobody ever really taught us that when a man triggers feelings of safety, that feeling is still within us. Now, in that moment, we're using the environment as an excuse to feel that way. We're using the fact that he just told me he loves me 5 minutes ago, so now I feel safe for a little while. We're using that condition as an excuse to feel this. But that feeling was available to us all along. But nobody ever told us that it was available to us with or without the man. And so when a man triggers those positive feelings, if we don't have that baseline level of happiness and abundance and security within ourselves and safety, Then when a man is there, we feel safe. And when he's not there, or he's not being what we want him to be, we feel unsafe, or we feel unloved, or we feel scarcity. One of the, those core fears are triggered. So the feelings that are triggered in you when you're not meeting your own needs are rooted in thoughts like, I'm worthy because he's paying attention to me. But when he's not paying attention to me, I feel unworthy. Or I'm safe because he texts me every day, so I know he's still available to me. But when he skips a day, or he doesn't text me his usual good morning text, I feel unsafe. Or at least I'm not alone because there's a warm body in my bed. These types of thoughts, right? So whenever he's not paying attention to you, whenever his focus is elsewhere, as it must be, at least some, if not most of the time, you feel not okay within yourself. You feel not enough, not safe, afraid that you're losing them and that you'll end up alone. Most of the needs that you have in your life are not meant to be fulfilled by a partner. And the thing is when you don't proactively meet your own needs, you then put that burden on your partner, which is not fair. So if you stop taking care of yourself, for example, let's say when you were single, you go to the gym, you eat healthy, you shave your legs, you do your hair, you do your makeup, like you've got your routine going that makes you feel really good, really sexy, ready for action at any time. And that obviously taking care of yourself makes you feel good, right? But then as soon as you're in a relationship, you kind of just let it all go. You stop doing your hair, you stop doing your makeup, you stop going to the gym, you stop shaving your legs, even though all of those things made you feel really good. But you stop doing them because you're like, okay, I got him, he loves me now. Like, so I don't have to put that effort in anymore. But the thing is, when you're doing that because it feels good to you, that's about meeting your own needs. But if you've been taking care of yourself impeccably while you're single, and then the minute you're in a relationship, you stop, you were never doing it for you. You were only doing it to perform, to be a certain way, to get love, to hook someone in, and then let it all go. Because you're like, okay, I got I hooked him, he married me, now I can go back to being lazy with myself because I was only doing it for him, and now that I've got him, I don't have to do it. So what happens when we do that? Our confidence starts to plummet because we have deemed, when we stop taking care of ourselves, the message that we send to ourselves is, I don't have to meet my own needs anymore. Someone else is here to meet them for me. And we tell ourselves, we don't actively tell ourselves most of the time. This is usually a subconscious process, but the message that we send to ourselves is, I'm not worthy of taking care of my own self. When we don't take care of ourselves, we're sending ourselves a message, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve to be well taken care of. So what happens is our confidence plummets. We don't feel sexy anymore. And the thing is that feeling of feeling sexy and ready for action at any minute, that never came from him. That came from the fact that you were taking care of yourself. You were feeling good in your skin. He barely had to do anything to make you feel sexy. And it's because you were taking care of yourself. You knew that, like, if you keep yourself groomed down there, then like you kept yourself groomed. And so whenever he was ready, all he had to do was kiss you, and you were just like, let's go, baby. You were ready because you were in a state of mind of being ready. You were taking care of yourself. You felt confident. You felt sexy. You felt all done up. You felt amazing because of the care that you gave to yourself. But you gave him all the credit. You gave him all the credit. he didn't deserve all that credit. Like, this is something that I've had this thought so many times, especially like in the last year that I've been dating. When I'm having sex with a man and he comments on how wet I am, I think in my head, that's because I was already 3/4 of the way there before you even got here. I've never actually said that to a man, but it crosses my mind that I probably have a mischievous smile on my face when I'm thinking that, but it's your state of feeling turned on, feeling sexy, feeling lovable, feeling beautiful, feeling all of those things. That was from you taking care of yourself, not from him. Because think about it. If you've had a long-term relationship and you notice that you kind of just let a lot of your self-care practices go over time, your partner probably told you all the time, or tells you all the time how beautiful you are, how sexy you are, but you don't believe them because you're not taking care of yourself the same way you used to. So you don't receive it. When you stop taking care of yourself, the logic goes, or not the logic as in like conscious logic, but the subconscious process was, there's someone else here to meet my needs now, so I don't have to do it anymore. But then you don't actually feel ever that need is fully met. Or at best, it's wobbly and very conditional, right? So this is what happens when we put all of our needs on men, is when you stop taking care of yourself, for example, your expectations of him change. All of a sudden, he has to do more in order to make you feel good. How is that fair? If a man enters into a relationship with you, and you are a certain way, you're like the type of woman who does her hair every day, who takes pride in her appearance, who like puts effort into her own happiness, who buys her own flowers and lights her candles and makes herself a tea at night and does journaling, and that type of woman who takes really, really exquisite care of herself. But then as soon as you're in a relationship, you stop. Well, everything that you were getting from all of those self-care practices, all the feelings of nourishment and love that you were giving yourself, all of a sudden you're putting them on him. You gave him a load that he was never meant to carry. And it's not fair. It's a bait and switch when we do that. It's not fair of us to do this with men. If you don't want to be the kind of woman who shaves her legs and curls her hair every day, that's fine. But don't do it to lure a man in and then say, okay, now I finally get to be myself. No. If you want to grow out your pit hair and your leg hair, like, do it. But don't shave for the dating stage. And then as soon as you've hooked a man, be like, oh, finally I can take off my bra and be the real me. Be the real you from day one, and you'll find a man who loves the real you. Not a man who loves the showboat version of you, right? So it's not fair of us to create a version of ourselves who takes care of ourselves and we're meeting our needs. And then we get into a relationship and all of a sudden we stop meeting our own needs and we transfer that responsibility to him. He's like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. So, because you transfer that responsibility onto him in order to compensate for what you're not getting from taking care of yourself that you were getting before. So, as you've likely experienced, this creates a lot of conflict. When your needs aren't met, your expectations on others change. And when you're not meeting your own needs of feeling safe, feeling emotionally safe, feeling safe as in like having a home, a place to live. If you're desperate for a place to live and you're not balanced within your inner masculine and feminine energy, and you're not taking action towards that in your own life, and you're not drawing upon your own leadership in that area of your life, guess what? You're very likely going to settle for a man who meets that need, whether he's the right man or not. So it's so important to recognize that the vast majority of your needs in your life are meant to be fulfilled by you first and foremost. Now, there are certain needs that must be fulfilled in a relationship in order for this to be a love that truly enriches both of your lives. So I would love for you to grab a journal, grab a notebook, or even type in the comments here some of the needs that you feel must be met in a relationship. And I'm going to list a few as well, a few examples. So deep emotional connection is one. And by emotional connection, I mean the ability to witness each other in our most vulnerable states. I don't mean projecting our emotions onto each other, or like making his emotions my responsibility, or making my emotions his responsibility. Like, that's not what I mean. I mean the ability to voice how I'm feeling, even if how I'm feeling is angry or frustrated or disappointed, without trying to manipulate him and without making it his responsibility to jump in and do something different to fix my feelings, right? That's another class for another day. But, you know, on October 21st, I am going to be talking about, you know what, I'll talk about that after. I'll give you a taste of what's coming next. But deep emotional connection, that is a need that must be met. Sacred sexuality. You would not be able to get me into a relationship that doesn't feel like I am, like when we're having sex, like it's with their soul. I am not interested in a relationship where it's just your run-of-the-mill, you know, I'm not interested in that. That's not fulfilling for me. It's fine for scratching an itch every once in a while. You know, I've been single for a little while now, so it's fine for scratching an itch every once in a while, but I'm not interested in a relationship that doesn't have sexuality on a very deep soul level. Building a life and a legacy together, like obviously there needs to be a certain level of compatibility. You have to be willing to move together towards a vision, a common vision. Building a life and a legacy together can also mean even, you know, working together in a business capacity, which a lot of sacred union couples do. A lot of couples who are soulmates or twin flames, they do end up working together in some capacity on their mission, which is such a beautiful thing. That isn't necessarily a deal breaker for everybody, but it's not a deal breaker for me, but it would be so amazing. Feeling supported and loved by the other. What's the point in being in a relationship if you don't feel loved by the person? Now, there is a boundary here where they can't be available to perform like a dancing monkey for you every time you feel, every time your self-confidence takes a hit and you're not willing to fix it yourself, you're not willing to take the lead and hold yourself in that. But in a relationship, your partner is going to, like in a sacred soulmate relationship, your partner is going to be like thrilled to show up for you every day and show you in a multitude of ways how they love you and how they want to be with you and how they care about your happiness. This is not something that you're going to have to, it's not going to feel like pulling teeth in this kind of relationship. Spending time together. Now, the level at which you want to spend time together is going to vary from couple to couple. But I mean, obviously, in a sacred relationship, you're going to spend time together. That might be, you know, once a week, spent like really sitting down and spending quality time together. For other people, it might be more, other people might be less, but what genuinely feels good. And not just good to your ego, because you're like, okay, I need to spend time together every single day. But is it your soul that needs that, or is it your ego that needs that? This is the distinction, right? Your ego only needs it if you are not meeting your own needs. Your soul needs it to a certain extent, but your ego, if you're not taking care of your own needs, your ego is going to be very, very loud. And communication. Of course, there must be a certain level of communication, being willing to be vulnerable and exposed with each other. Being willing to have the difficult conversations when necessary, being willing to express how you feel, express when you have a problem. There has to be communication. So these are some examples of needs that must be fulfilled in a relationship. And if those needs are not fulfilled, the relationship feels one-sided, it feels off balance, right? So over the last few decades, we've become really resistant to the idea of needing a partner, as if somehow it's like less enlightened or spiritual to acknowledge that there are needs that someone else can fulfill. But we weren't designed to live this life alone. A relationship where your needs that only a partner can fulfill are not being met is a relationship that will drain you. So if you're pouring into a relationship and you're showing up for your partner, you're expressing your love, your vulnerability, you're keeping yourself open to connection, and then your partner is a brick wall. There's no reciprocity. Like, you're expressing your love, like maybe through physical touch or whatever, but then they don't express their love to you. Obviously, that's not going to be a reciprocal relationship that's going to keep you happy. And this is a case of where this relationship is going to drain you because you are feeding into it, but it is not feeding into you. So this isn't about saying like, I do everything for him. I make his lunch and I like wash his clothes and I do all the things and he doesn't. So there is a difference between getting into mothering mode and doing all the things and then saying, I'm so drained by this relationship because I do all these things and he doesn't, like, he's not being how I want him to be, so now I feel drained. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I am fully myself in this relationship. I express how I feel. I'm pursuing my passions and interests outside of the relationship. I'm deepening my relationship with myself. I am making time available to spend together. I'm being who I want to be in a relationship. And it's like I'm throwing the ball over there and it's not being thrown back. So this is where you're like, this just isn't a relationship for me. This is it feels one-sided. It doesn't feel like they're tossing the ball back to me. So this is where you make a decision that honors yourself by walking away. If you have determined that, you know what, I really have, I'm proud of how I've shown up in this relationship, how I've done the inner work around all the triggers that this brought up, and I've really made an effort to meet my own needs, and I still feel that this relationship is the reason why my cup always feels empty. Because that's the thing. In a sacred relationship where you're actively meeting your own needs and both you and your partner are being each other's overflow, this relationship becomes a sanctuary. It becomes like just this feeling of abundant overflow and safety and love. But when you're actively meeting your own needs, but your partner is not doing their part in the relationship to meet your needs, this is where you find yourself constantly refilling your cup, and it's like they're the reason why it's empty, right? It's like your partner should be your overflow, not the reason why your cup is empty. So if you're constantly having to refill your own cup to compensate for the fact that they're not showing up, that is a relationship that doesn't honor who you are, right? So So what I'm going to be covering in the part 2 that I'm going to be heading over to the part 2 in a second here. What I'm going to be covering inside the MFWA is how to distinguish if you're feeling needy because you're not meeting your own needs, or if it's your partner who's just not showing up in a way that's fulfilling for you. How to make sure that you're choosing a man who can appropriately meet your needs if you're in the dating stage. Identifying what needs you can reasonably expect a partner to fulfill and what needs you must fulfill yourself in order to be happy. The inner work for addressing unmet needs within yourself. And of course, tips for communicating an unmet need in a relationship. And so if you're going to be joining me over there, I will see you in the MFWA. And if not, I want to give you a taste of what's coming on October 21st in the next Inner Work Wednesday. We're going to be talking about melting the ice queen. So the ice queen is that part of ourselves that wants to punish and give the silent treatment and feels resentful and defensive and angry at her man and doesn't know how to melt her own heart, and it has created distance in her relationships. So I'm really excited for that class on October 21st. So I can't wait for you to join me in that one. And so for those of you who are heading over to the MFWA, I will see you there, and have an amazing day to the rest of you.